Hello and welcome back to my series on why I love Life is Strange 2. It is time for that final chapter, the big finale, if you will, the end, chapter 5. By this point, it's been an incredible ride, and so when you get here, you're just kind of waiting to see how it ends and hoping that the ending isn't something so catastrophic that it completely kills what they've built up into this point. Just kind of starting right off the bat, you've got both brothers in this beautiful canyon scene. I guess they are waking up from freshly having stargazed the day before. And they do some recap with the Lisbeth situation. Daniel's having nightmares about her. If you didn't choose to kill her, if you chose to kill her, he's got his own problems with that decision. So you're already dealing with problems from the previous decisions. But once again, I just can't say enough that beautiful opening canyon scene is a wonderful way to start the scene. And then you have the brothers returning back to their camp after having camped out the night and done their stargazing and whatnot. And you finally kind of get to see the independence between the brothers at this point. Up until this point, there's been a pretty heavy dependency on Daniel's part for Sean. Like, Daniel is dependent on Sean, even though he doesn't directly admit or acknowledge that. But at the same time, as a player, you definitely realize it. But now Daniel's character feels much older in this episode than he does in any episode prior, which is huge coming from episode 4, where his writing was, in my opinion, so flawed and beyond immature, to then jump into where he is in episode 5, where he almost feels like a teenager, like he's almost an adult. So that was a huge kind of step and a huge okay, here we go. This is what we're getting ready for. So they make it back to the camp. You figure out that they're staying with their mom, who is in some isolated, middle of nowhere, Arizona desert camp. And they kind of let you, get to know people around there. And you get to meet the guy from the first game, David, I think. He was the security guard from the first game. He was a really big role in the first game. I had played the second game first, and so I had no idea who this guy was until I went back and played the first game. And I was like, oh, that's who that guy was. Yeah, he had a huge role. And then it was just kind of a weak segment. I did not like Karen at all. So I didn't really care for her desert camp of people. Okay, whatever. And none of them had very interesting stories. I don't know. I felt like when you compare this group to the group that they had in Humboldt, that was a solid group. In episode 3 with Humboldt, you got Finn, you had Cassidy. Everyone had their stories. Everyone brought something to the table. That was a solid group. This group just kind of felt, nah. You had some lady who liked to build sculptures, a gay couple who was almost there just to flaunt the fact that they were gay, and then the security guard guy and Karen. It didn't work for me. So you had the strong start to the chapter with the canyon scene and just how wonderfully brilliant that all looked and felt. And then you rolled into this away chapter, and it's just it's the end. I'm not going to spend the time getting to know these people or even remotely caring about them. Let's just move on with our lives. And so that's, in many cases, what we did, or what I did. It gave me the chance to write Karen a note. I think I wrote her a note, but it was a very not, I don't care about you note. I didn't go as far as to not write her a note. I was like, okay, I'll say thank you, I guess. But at any rate, then you have the option to hug her. Nope, didn't hug her. I shut her down pretty hardcore. And so then it's just you and Daniel on the road to Mexico. It's finally time to get to Mexico. And so you guys are riding together, and Daniel's kind of talking to you about his concerns about Mexico. He doesn't speak Spanish. How are we going to live there? All these very mature logistical questions to be asking about their plan that have not come up until this point. they've had this plan for 5 episodes now. Each episode's like a 4-hour segment. It's a good amount of content. And we've covered a lot of content up until this point. But no one has really seriously sat down and dissected their plan or lack thereof. So for Daniel, this 11-year-old child, to be the one who has to do that, that's kind of scary. Like, okay, what are we getting into? So they pull up on the desert. The mom gave herself up to the police in order to divert attention, which I feel like, I don't know if that was just a writing flaw or if that was an oversight or what happened there. But it's like they mentioned that the police were on their trail because they knew about what happened in Haven Point. Okay, I get that. But I feel like by her announcing, hey, I'm right here, then the police know, okay, Sean and Daniel must be in the area, like, duh. So I feel like if, I don't know if that's just me overthinking it, but I feel like that was a dumb decision on her part, and maybe I'm just reading way too much into this and it's just a story, but to me it's so much more than just a story. And so I feel like that was a poor decision on her part to turn herself in like that, because now obviously the police know they're around. So you get to the border, destroy the border. You have this huge scene where you get to see almost the pinnacle of Daniel's power. Depending on the ending you unlock the real pinnacle of Daniel's power. We'll get to that. But at any rate, he tears down this gate. It's time to pass through. He's exhausted. You're exhausted. And the brothers are finally going to be free. And then bang, someone is shot. Daniel is shot. And this scene spirals out of control very, very quickly. From the gunshot to the radical racists to the police, and it's just one thing after another. And as the audience, you're just sitting back taking this all in, like, what in the hell is going on here? So you get apprehended by the police. The police know who you are. The racist people get apprehended by the police because they're racist. And your son, and Daniel gets apprehended by the police because he just got shot in the arm. So now you're in the police. You get to learn about all the awful racism of these racist people, and they just really work at you at getting your goat. And then you meet the random Spanish couple. And I feel like that was kind of the reoccurring thing in episode 5, is really trying to convince the player not to go to Mexico. Like the whole time they've been, let's go to Mexico, let's go to Mexico, let's go to Mexico. And then you have that sit down talk with David. I keep calling him David. I hope that's his name. And he's really like, you need to turn yourself in and have a better future for you and your brother. And then Daniel's in the car, and Daniel's like, I can't speak Spanish. How are we going to live here? What are we going to do? And then the police officer, the Mexican couple in the jail cell are like, hey, Mexico's a trashy place. You really don't want to be there. That's why we're trying to cross the border right now. And so it's like, holy crap, like, are we making the right decision? They really make you weigh heavily on that decision, and it sucks because it's like, up until this point, this is our decision. Like, we're not changing our minds. So it's your turn to be interrogated. Police officers trying to figure out why basically everywhere you go explodes, which is a pretty valid question considering. And then the police station starts to explode. Fancy that. So here comes Daniel to the rescue, blows open the door, knocks out the police officer. You guys are telekinesising your way out of this building, and you're destroying everything. You have the option to kill the racist people, the option to free the Mexican people, the option to kill police officers. It just absolutely hits the fan at this point. You do all that you have to do. You get the heck out of that police station, and you're back on the road, headed back to the border. So here we go with another, in my opinion, either an oversight or, I don't know, poor writing, or maybe they just really wanted Sean to seem like that predictable of a character. But given the fact that he was just caught at the border, why would he drive back to the border? Like, that seems like the least likely plan to do. And obviously, there's an entire, like, wall of police cars and police officers waiting at the border for Sean and Daniel. So it was bad decision all around. And then there's cops behind you. You're surrounded. And it's the big finale of everything that we have been building up to. And it comes down to surrender to the police or fight and try to make it to Mexico. And I mean, it's hard because a lot of people point out the fact that Sean could have surrendered to the police at the very first chapter, first instance, and none of this story would have existed. And so when you put that logic into your thought process, it really makes surrendering at this point in the story seem extremely pointless. It's like we've come so far, we've done so much. To surrender now makes that all for naught. And then on the other hand, if you choose to fight, can Daniel really fight against all these police officers? We've seen him get shot twice now. On 2 occasions, Daniel has been shot. And I think they cleverly put that in throughout the story so that you can see he's not invincible. And it makes you question, can his telekinesis really get us out of this situation? And if so, how? So you've got this last decision to make, and it's the biggest decision to make. And in many ways, like I said, in my opinion, the decision to surrender at that point undermines the entire story, undercuts it all. And I'm not trying to say it's a bad ending. I'm not trying to say it's a poorly written ending. But from my perspective personally, when I was sitting in the shoes of Sean and I'm trying to make that decision and I'm like, what do I do? Do I surrender or do I keep fighting? In my mind, I'm like, you know what? If I were going to have surrendered, I should have done so way back in episode 1. So it's too late now, and we've got ourselves way too deep in now to surrender. So I shot the fight, and the ending I got was the separate ways ending. So Daniel helps Sean fight his way to Mexico. And then Daniel ultimately decides that Mexico is just not the way to go for him. So he hops out of the car and boom, they're separated. Daniel gets adopted by the grandparents. Sean goes off to Mexico to live with whomever he romanced. For me, it was Cassidy. And that's the ending I got. That's one of 7 endings, and I'll be making a video that more details and dissects the endings of Life is Strange 2, because I feel like that's enough content there to cover a video in and of itself. I was satisfied with the ending that I had. The Separate Ways ending is probably my second favorite ending. They did a really intelligent They really intelligently wrote the endings, and the fact that each ending is tailored towards something an audience member would want. Generally speaking, going into this ending, you're either going to want the brothers to stay together or you're going to want them to live normal lives. And these endings are tailored towards that, but at the same time, they give you some sort of conflict. So no ending is perfect, and I feel like that's realistic. That's realism kicking in. Nothing is ever perfect. So none of the endings are going to give you 100% happily ever after. But at the same time, you as the player get to decide what matters to you most. And for me, what mattered to me most was them sticking together. Which obviously I got the ending that was the exact opposite of that. But what I did get to see was both of them living happy lives. Not the best lives, not the most perfect lives, given everything they've been through. That's never going to happen. But at least Sean is in Mexico, having a good time with Cassidy, theoretically. Daniel's having a regular childhood growing up with Chris and the grandparents. And that is Life is Strange 2 in the books for me. And that is the end of my journey, and I hope you guys have enjoyed my series on it. I will continue making Life is Strange 2 content. Like I said, I have a video about the endings coming out. I have a video about the music coming out, and then with Life is Strange 3 right around the corner, it's just going to be a Life is Strange 3 channel at this point, I suppose. So support your squad, and I'll see you next time.